I would love for as many journalists as possible to feel confident and prepared to report on LGBTQ issues. The skills to report on them should be skills that every journalist should have in their toolbox, whether their beat is LGBTQ news or not. Hi, my name is Brooke Zapelsa. I'm the editorial director of NBC Out, the LGBTQ section of NBCnews.com. And today we're talking about some of the best practices when reporting on the LGBTQ community. If someone is just starting to cover LGBTQ issues for a beat or for a big story, I would recommend that they first look at some of the style guides. One style guide that I often use, and they don't just cover LGBTQ issues, but they have a great section, is the Associated Press Style Guide. The NLGJA Style Guide is also very helpful. That's the LGBTQ Journalist Association. And the Trans Journalist Association Style Guide is also helpful. If someone's looking for a general primer, I would recommend to them the glossaries from HRC, GLAAD, the National Center for Transgender Equality. If someone really wants an overview of the LGBTQ community, one book I recommend is The Gay Revolution by Lillian Faderman. It's a really strong overview that will give journalists or anyone interested in learning about queer history a solid foundation, where we were about 100 years ago and how we got to where we are now. Another thing that I think is important when covering the LGBTQ community is to read other reputable outlets' coverage of LGBTQ people. Familiarize yourself with some of the latest stories. NBC Out would be a great place to go. NBC Out reports on LGBTQ issues across the spectrum, from politics to pop culture. I think of NBC Out's unofficial motto as "By Us for Everyone," because the folks who are reporting on LGBTQ issues for NBC Out are typically part of the community or have a vast understanding of the community, but we're reporting on it in a way that's very accessible. I think the LGBTQ community, more so than any other community, has language that is changing in real time. Getting issues of language right, we do that for many reasons. One of them is respect to the community. No community, no individual wants to be referred to in language that they don't feel comfortable with. If you're starting out reporting on queer issues, you should familiarize yourself with these definitions. Not just because you'll need to know them for when you're writing and reporting, but when you're reading source material, when you're interviewing someone who's part of the community, in order to ask the proper follow-up questions or really understand what your interview subject is saying. These are terms that you should know early on. Don't be afraid to ask questions. As journalists, that is part of our job. So if you aren't feeling confident about a particular subject, or you're not sure you're using the right terminology for a community that you're reporting on for the first time, ask. Our community has for so long been hidden in the shadows and the closets that I want to do my part to get as much news and information about the queer community out there as possible. We're bringing LGBTQ issues to a so-called mainstream national audience. So any excuse I get to shine light on LGBTQ history, I do. And NBC Out, this platform allows me to do that.